The Broad Street Review podcast is teaming up with the Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance's RestART initiative, bringing you conversations about how Philly arts organizations are surviving the COVID-19 crisis and the changes they're taking into the future. I'm your host, Darnell Radford. Broad Street Review is Philly's home for arts, culture, and conversation. We're a nonprofit online arts and culture journal serving the greater Philadelphia area since 2005. Today on the podcast, our summer series collaboration with Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance's RestART initiative draws to a close with the initiative's champions, Kabria Rogers and Roberta Johnson. Stay tuned.
And welcome to the podcast. And so we are here closing out our RestART with BSR coverage. And I'm here with Kabria Rogers and Roberta Johnson of the Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance. Kabria, Roberta, hello.
Hi.
Hello.
So happy to be chatting with you.
We are definitely old friends. We are definitely old friends now. I just want to say what fun I've had, doing RestART with BSR, getting to know these organizations a little bit more intimately, and talking about sort of the challenges and how they've risen above them and the work that still needs to be done in these organizations. But it was really great to get a chance to meet with all of them and hear what was going on in their worlds. And so I'm excited to be here with both of you to do this wrap up.
Awesome. We're so excited to hear how much you enjoy just working and talking to the organizations. We enjoy working with them, so we're super excited to talk about it and to wrap it all up.
Yeah, great. So this will be kind of, I guess, sort of like a hybrid chat where normally I'm interviewing the guests, but I'm going to give you an opportunity to ask me anything that you might want to know about my experience interviewing these great organizations.
Ooh, I want to go first. I love questions. So you use the word intimate, which I feel is the best way to describe RestART. So when you were interviewing them, what was the thing that stood out the most across the conversations?
I would say the technical parts of these organizations was a through line. We all use technology. We use various virtual spaces to get work done, but the thought of working with the patrons who support these organizations in a virtual space was not a part of immediate plans at the beginning of the pandemic. And everyone had a common conversation about how they were going to pivot to meet those moments. And so I thought that was interesting because I've seen the trend of technology flowing, but it just shows us that there is such a value in live, in-person engagement when it comes to arts and culture. And so the fact that every organization I had the opportunity to chat with said that this was a moment where we had to pause and figure out the best way to move forward, was a thought that made me think, like, initially I was saying like, oh, we should be prepared. It's 2022. There's no excuses. But then it's like, no, that's not it. It's that there's something so unique about us gathering in the cultural space that that virtual component, even though it is doable, it's not ideal for what we prefer to do, how we prefer to get out and engage with the community. So it's not that I don't see a future where that will be more infused into the work, but that was an interesting moment. It's saying, because sometimes you work with organizations who, like, I know some organizations where on their website, they don't even list who actually works for the organization. And it's like, well, if I knew those names, one of those names might be, oh my God, I know Kabria. Okay, I'll make a contribution. Or, something like that. Where if you don't see the names, it's just the organization, and the organization has no face. It just has programming, and that doesn't really lend to the identity that you're trying to push out there. And of course, those names change over time. But knowing who valued the mission of these organizations enough to lend their knowledge and expertise to furthering their missions, I think is very valuable. So I would encourage every organization who does not have a list of all the people that work with them to get a list on the website, even if you don't link to their email addresses. Let us know who works here, because you'll be surprised. The people who volunteer for your organization might be the catalyst for some great support in the future for your organization. And the people who have been in the organization for many years, who have taken on many different roles, it's also great to see that as well.
I think that's great as far as like what you mentioned in terms of that human and personal element. And I think that was part of what we wanted to encapsulate in the RestART kind of initiative, was really humanizing these organizations. I like to think of the pandemic as kind of our great equalizer. And really being able to understand each other. My hope is that, as human beings, we come out of this a little bit more empathetic to each other, and really more connected deeply, even through like the technology barriers, but also just even recognizing those barriers of like what that human experience is, right? What is it like to experience a show in person versus in the virtual space? And how do you really capture that emotion? And I do think that our organizations, and I will say like our industry as a whole, continue to grapple with that in terms of what is engagement and experience and human connectiveness through the arts, for our new world that we're going into. So
Yeah,
now
absolutely.
I could ask a question.
Okay.
I'm excited to ask the question. I guess when you were having your interviews, were there any type of like kind of aha moments, or you didn't know that? Kind of building upon that whole thing of getting to know the folks behind the organizations and how they talk about the organizations from a passion perspective. Were there things like, oh my God, I didn't know that. That is amazing. Like, were there any cool nuggets that you took away from the interviews?
Yeah. I would say, let me start with the first interview I had with Abbastan, Seeds of Culture, when I met with Mohanad Gawanme, the executive director. Learning more about Abbastan, I had to think, and I took a step back and said, like, oh yes, there is an Arab American community in this area. And there are many immigrants in this area. And I started thinking about like how they get here, and how they remain connected to their culture is through organizations like Avastan. And, so sometimes we just see certain hues as we're walking around in the world, and we don't really think about everyone who makes their way here. And Philadelphia is an international city. Of course, we would have such diversity in our communities, but sometimes we tend to focus more on some other than others. So that was interesting about Avastan, for example. And then I had a chat with Da Vinci Art Alliance, and I met with Veronica Nell, the marketing coordinator there. And this was a beautiful space that I pass all the time when I'm walking through South Philly, and say, like, what a great mural they have, and thinking, like, I don't, at the moment, I don't need to enter into the facility to experience what they have to offer. But now I'm going to think about it differently every time I walk by, and say, like, because there's probably many people in our city who have heard of these organizations and don't realize, oh, wow, I guess this is an organization for me as well, and not just for whoever they are, generally supporting. And then we get into like EgoPo, for example. I met with Katrina Foy, who's the managing director, who has since transitioned from EgoPo. But I have known EgoPo for a long time. Their journey from Louisiana, New Orleans area, and how they made it here, and brought their art to Philadelphia, and just continued to grow over the years. It's just like, wow, I can't believe I remember at the very beginning when you got your first funding, and was really trying to put roots down here in Philadelphia, and the many theatrical productions I've been able to experience over the years. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. And I hope the listeners learned more about EgoPo in that interview, and we'll follow EgoPo as we move forward. Again, with Kun Young Lin dancers, it's like I've seen those. I've seen those beautiful photos and beautiful clips when I met with Katie Moore Durgitz and Maggie Zhao, and just learning more about them, and the organization altogether was like, okay, wow, I'm a little overloaded and very excited about the many diverse organizations we have here, and thinking about the many facilities that they've been able to share their art in. It's like, wow, you were here too. You were in this space too. You saw value in the Painted Bride Art Center. You saw value in the Annenberg and the Kimmel Center in the Forest. And it's just, it's like, again, it's like, did you know we have Kun Young Lin dancers here in our community? Like, let's all pay attention. Let's all celebrate the wonderful work that they're doing as well. Intercultural journeys. I met with Carly Rappaport Stein, the executive director, and learning so much about their organization, how I walked in thinking that they were more music centered, but they've become more interdisciplinary over the years, and seeing how they are branching out and trying to make those connections that all call back to their general mission and their passion. And after 20 years of operation, I thought it was really great. Again, and follow intercultural journeys as well. This was all very exciting for me. And for Carly, I remember talking to Carly about, like, what do you do when you're not immersed in all this interdisciplinary work? And how Carly has a child and is trying to balance all of that in this situation as well, and saying like, yes, there's families here too. It's not just we're trying to keep our, cultural babies afloat. We're also, still trying to elevate humans and keeping humans safe in all of this as well. And then I'm and Tiny Dynamite, who Casey McMillan, I've known for years in the various organizations that Casey has lended their talents to, and the work that they do at Tiny Dynamite, I thought was just so exciting. And, it's just like, wow, we have such a vibrant. I remember Mayor Nutter, when he was the mayor of Philadelphia, would always say this very vibrant city. It's a very vibrant city, and so I would always.
I love the
That was
impression.
amazing. That was
So
amazing. It took everything
yeah.
not to burst into laughter at that impression. It was amazing.
I would always parody him, but it was all out of love. And then the fact to see how accessible Mayor Nutter had always been, to just see him walking around the city and like being in various places, you're like, that's our mayor.
He is a true Philadelphian. We actually just had him speak to our Bloomberg Arts interns that just wrapped up their summer intern program. And we learned very interestingly about his background. Actually, he was a DJ back in the day. And I was like, oh, he's music arts, and he's talking to our interns, and it's a very full circle moment, right?
Yeah.
So I love, and I did my impression too of Mayor Nutter. I think everybody has an impression, because he just has such a distinct presence and voice. But I also love just the kind of care and love towards arts and culture and about our city, right? And the vibrancy of how really arts connects us all in this city. I don't know what Philadelphia would be without arts and culture. I really can't even imagine Philadelphia without it. I mean, we'd just be eagles, I guess.
I mean, and I think that that's the heart of this group. I think that's the heart of this initiative, that we can't imagine what Philadelphia would look like without its creative sector. And when we say creative sector, we mean things that are very blatant to the things that are not blatant, to the fact that all of these beautiful, diverse, intercultural, international things are happening simultaneously in this city. And that it's not just about the art, but it gets to the root of humanity and who we are in our depths. So it's really nice to hear that in your conversations with these individuals that you were able to really get to know them better, not just as Al Bustan, not just as Intercultural Journeys, not just as, KYLD, but as the people who run and operate them. So I'm going to ask you one more question, Darnell, because this is fun. I get to ask you questions. What do you think? As a person who got a unique perspective talking to these individuals, what do you think you would like to see for them in the future? This is where we get a little aspirational. This is where we imagine what our creative sector can look like beyond the frame of a pandemic.
Yeah. Well, for one, I hope that the powers that decide when it's time to look at our budgets, and they think about, should we take away money from the Philadelphia Cultural Fund, that they just steer clear of that. It just doesn't make any sense. It's not enough funding to begin with. It needs to be more. And when you think about how much that that funding, how that funding reaches out into the community, doesn't it make you feel optimistic about what if we put more money into that pot, and how much more we could do with those resources? And so I really hope that we think about that, because there were a lot of organizations who said that, thanks to some of the funders that have supported them over the years, who maybe released more funding that was supposed to trickle down over the years all at once to keep them afloat. We really think about that. There was a need for it, but that need hasn't gone away. It's not gone away just because the pandemic is moving into endemic phases. It's still very much there, but that struggle is real. And the thing I really liked about all of these chats is that they were long form, and they were not sound bites. They were not those moments where we're just trying to sell the next production. And we made a really good effort to not really talk about a specific program that was coming up, because it wasn't necessarily promotional. It was more about the organizations in general, why they exist, why they matter, and why they deserve our time and attention and celebration. So I definitely hope that the listeners of this series see the value of arts and culture in our community, and think about that when they pass these organizations in their neighborhood, when they hear about these organizations, when they engage in any of them, and think about how they can actually lend support, whether it's I was here, had a great time, and I post that on social media, or I had a few extra dollars and I gave it to them, and and I'm going to continue to do that, because I actually realize it's not putting me out to support them, and it's actually easier than we think if we all did it together, if we all got together and supported these organizations, how much they could grow, and how much they are true examples of the culture here in Philadelphia. And it was so diverse, and so it's not just the things that we keep pointing out. Like, we know we have a large African American community here, but it's not just that. We know that we have a lot of Caucasian Americans that make up Philadelphia's population, but it's not just that. It's not just the people who are developing these high rises downtown. There are people who are engaging us and keeping us involved, and making us feel like this is truly, again, to take from Mayor Nutter, not that Kenny hasn't done good things, but to say he pointed out what a world-class city we are. And we are such a world-class city. So I really hope arts and culture is what reminds us that we are a world-class city, because of the diversity of culture that we can experience pretty much on any given day in the city, that we can take advantage of. And I just engage with these organizations over the summer. Just imagine the rest of the year. Like, as we're chatting now, we're moving right into September. It's like we're about to be completely immersed in fringe arts, and then after that, the theater community, the dance community, and cultural institutions start to really sprout and share their wares for this coming season. Really, that we should be excited and really looking forward to all of that. And yeah, so I mean, I'm a nerd for long form conversation, and I think if we take the time, because if you can figure out whether you want to be friends with someone or not if you talk to them for about 5 minutes. And so if you spend 20, 30 minutes with an organization to learn a little bit about what they do and the challenges they come up against, and how they manage to meet those challenges with confidence and drive, then you can see that and say, you know what, I'm rooting for you. I want you to succeed, and I'm going to do what I can to make sure that you do.
Thank you. That made me really happy to hear you say that, because, throughout the conception of the initiative, me and Roberta had a lot of conversations, ongoing conversations about how we were really going to elevate the organizations and not shy away from the challenges, but very much highlight the successes. To your
Mm-hmm.
point, they all have different missions, serve different communities, and while there are similarities between some presenting organizations, they all are out to do something different. And when we were talking to them, it became clear early on that this was not going to be a one size fit all, that we were going to engage in these conversations and be present. And like, yes, there's a through line on some things, and we're going to try to approach those things, but that we were really going to try to meet them where they are individually and show up for them, so that they can do what they already are doing, and hopefully with a little bit more ease. So hearing you say that out loud, it makes me feel good, because that's exactly how me and Roberta felt working with them. We also felt very similar around resources. We felt like people have to come first, right? Not all resources are just financial. Resources also are conversations, connections, truly hearing and understanding what the challenges are and being willing to, help or problem solve or think through what that looks like. So that makes me happy to hear that, even in those conversations with them, you saw that.
I mean, I also want to echo that sentiment as well. And I'm really happy that you brought up about just funding, right? And talking about our city and, the folks who represent us. Because we have to also remember that we vote for these folks and they represent us. And to eliminate arts and culture or not give us more money in arts and culture is a disservice to us. As Philadelphians, like you said, we are world class, we are international, and we are known for our culture. We're a very unique city. We got swag that no one has. we came up with Gritty, and like everyone in the city was very much like taken aback, and then people started making fun of Gritty outside of us, and we were like, no, that's our homie, that's our homeboy.
Mm-hmm.
Don't talk too much about him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there are whole things, and just being on the map, right? The things that Spiral Crew was able to do when we were trying to bring in that election, right? And saying, no, it's over, time's up. And you have like people in these costumes, and like Spiral Crew is this great arts activating like center and hub, and they were at the center of that, right? That's culture. That's Philly culture. Like even Philly emo, like being able to be out in the street, with a drum line walking down the street. That is arts. That's arts and culture in Philly. Like I can't imagine Philadelphia without arts and culture. Like all of these things, even the concept of Gritty. Like, could you imagine some blue eyes and an orange shirt?
I'm glad you mentioned those drum lines, because sometimes there's a moment where, maybe you're sitting down for dinner or you're watching TV and you hear them coming, and then you're like, oh man, but then you think about, well, in order for them to perform live and in person, they need to perform live and in person. And they're coming through the community, and this beat is hitting, and then you start bumping. And then you're like, all right, y'all can have your little thing. And then you just realize that you're like, that's Philly.
Yeah.
That's Philadelphia right there. And I said, I don't think, I remember we were passing a group of drummers I think it was over the summer yeah, like earlier in the summer. And I was like, yeah, we shouldn't, we need to be celebrating that. Anytime we, anytime we experience art being expressed, we need to celebrate it. We need to figure out if there's anything we can do that just elevates it, that lifts it. And, even down to our street performers. Like, you'll see our street performers, what they're able to do with, pots and pans sometimes you see, but they stop traffic, they stop
Yeah.
people who are on their way somewhere, and they pull out their phones and they capture that, and that's going on social media, and they're like, where else but Philly, it's like, New York does this in the subway stations, but we do this right out in the street corner,
We
and
do
we
it
make sure,
everywhere.
and it's not just specific neighborhoods
Yeah.
that benefit from that as well,
I
um, eh,
I wanted to
yeah.
talk about, because I love the fact that you talked about particularly Carly over at Interculture Journeys. And I've known Carly actually since our grad school days. And to see her grow, and she has been just as much as I have in arts and culture for such a long time in the city, and starting her journey through mural arts and now at Interculture Journeys. And I also love the fact that you're talking about when we originally came on the scene, we only really looked at them as from a music lens, and how they have expanded much more multidisciplinary, right?
Yeah.
And even to the point where, like, this summer and during this whole Restart initiative, they were working with Ursula Rucker and many of our local Philly spoken word artists. And I don't know. I just love gushing about our city and arts, right? We have so much here. Like, Sonia Sanchez was like our poet laureate for many years. Like, these are things I'm like, do you guys not realize how amazing the talent that we have here, the artistry that we have here, and these small organizations like Interculture Journeys having like this spoken word platform and a very creative and different way of presenting them, even elevating that art form to a different space. We've learned so much from these organizations, and we hope that the Restart Initiative really gave them the space to do what they do best, but also to bring more people into that communal space, to be on that journey with them as well. Because I also feel like we're all on that same journey together, just trying
Yeah.
to figure it out as human beings, but also be able to express through creativity of this experience, as Prince says, this experience called life. This experience calls life. So shout out to Prince, R.I.P. But anyway,
wish we could claim it.
I know, right? But he did have a lot of roots here in Philadelphia, and a lot of performance, a lot of places. Like, my mama has a story about going to see Prince in Philly, and everybody has a Prince story, and I appreciate hearing those stories too.
And that Philadelphia sound, was so iconic here. Like, when you walk down Broad Street and you see the plaques on the ground, and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. Okay, all right, okay. And anytime Patti LaBelle shows up somewhere, you're like, that's right, okay. Yeah, there's just so much here to be proud of, and I think anybody who thinks about maybe moving to another area, they know that it's a struggle. It's not the easiest thing to decide that you want to leave Philadelphia. You're just like, I was just trying to see if there was something else out there. I didn't want to, like, you know, um, lock my close myself off to any opportunities. But Philly is home. You know, it's like, I told a friend before. I said, you gotta look at Philadelphia like you're in a relationship. 6 months into the relationship, you do an assessment and you're like, are we good? Is this something I want to pursue? And then you get into the year, and now you got an anniversary marker, and you're like, wow, look at all we've done. And then you just find those moments to take stock in your place in this space, and you start thinking about whether it still matters, whether it's still valid or relevant. And I don't know that there were a ton of people who left Philadelphia during this time frame.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. And I do think that largely, our nature as Philadelphians is to kind of come together and have that shared experience. Like, even if you're having a problem on SEPTA, we all have the problem on SEPTA. Like, the amount of like instant community that comes together and during great like moments is a very Philadelphian thing, which I didn't realize until you go and visit other cities that it's not like that. It is not a universal form, and that's why people love it here. That's why people who come here and visit, and they end up making this their kind of forever home. And what really sells them or even keeps them here is the amount of just like culture and creativity and the things that you can do in this space, in the city, but also how you can be a part of the fabric and making that fabric. I think that's also really key too. So I don't think a lot of people have left the city. If anything, I feel like we're getting more people coming into our city. And one of the things about Philadelphia is that no matter how many people come into the city, it's almost like you adapt to being a Philadelphian person. Like, it is not, it's very unique. I would say it's a very unique space to be in. And
it doesn't feel like we're in competition either. Like, if someone says, "Oh, you're new to Philly," like, for instance, I went to the Philly Theater meetup that was a week or two ago, and there were quite a few college students. There were new people who were just like, "I just know I need to be in theater. I don't know exactly where I want to be right now." And in that moment, they were able to meet several playwrights, one a Pulitzer Prize winning playwright, and just in us having a conversation about, like, I'm not sure where I want to be, found out this one young man I was talking to had a background in construction, and I said, scenic design. Oh my God, we were already thinking about like how they could get involved, and now they're taking classes at Scenic Works, and received a lot of connections. Here, connect with me. If you want to come see a show, let me know. I will get you in the door. Hey, I'm going to Malcolm X Park to see Dreamgirls Theater in X. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna have to go too. I might have to head up over there. It was like, oh, we're going to go see Rent over here. I was like, I might have to join you. You're just thinking about like how you can bring more people along with you. We're not in competition. We're in celebration of each other, and we want to find a way that everybody can grow together. And so I've always loved that about artists in general. And then I'm like, who is out here saying that we're all competing aggressively against each other? We're not necessarily doing that. We all have such unique, ways of reaching our community that I don't see that at all.
I do think it is worth saying that the feeling of competition is very much aligned with access to or not access to the limited resources that we have around arts and culture, which I don't think is necessarily internal to the community, but I do think it is the condition that the community is confronted with. So I think that sometimes that narrative comes from that. And while I will recognize that, like, we all want the grant, we all want more money, we all want to have more money to push our missions, I think that there is like less conversation around how much we are able to produce and create and be in collaboration and community despite that condition. So I think that it's a yes and I do think that in our artistic spaces there is a lot of just wanting to share and wanting to do this thing better and wanting to create and wanting to create the best, and that other part of the conversation typically comes a little bit later, when you like want the gallery space, when you want the exhibit, when you want the fellowship, when you want the residency, because you just want to continue your art as a practice. And that how important it is to be an artist and an advocate, so that you're always advocating for the resources to come to your community at large, and not feel like you're cannibalized against people who are on this art journey with you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great and excellent point, and it also gives me a minute to plug our funders, right? So, because I mean, we have to recognize that our funders are integral to the work that we do, right? And also how we can accomplish things, but also thinking about their mindsets when they fund certain projects. This RestART project is about collaboration, is about us community working together towards that common goal, and especially in the face of this pandemic crisis, right? And so PICO, being our local funder, and then the National Endowment for the Arts, which is really about that kind of immersive experience. But PICO, being local here, is really about connecting the community and that access point that Kabria is talking about, right? Being able to break down those barriers of access and broaden our spectrum across the arts. So I do want to thank you, PICO, as well as the NEA, for providing us the support needed for the RestART initiative, and for us to have like these long form conversations. I also think that this was a peek into, you know, the organizations more than just the surface levels. Oftentimes when folks talk about our creative industry, they really talk about it from a very surface perspective and not from that human perspective, and what is actually driven behind arts and culture and that creativity. And to your point, it is not competitive in that competitive landscape. We all want to see each other win. And I think funders are realizing, how can we maximize the impact and spread the plethora across. I do think that we need to still continue to advocate, because it is not just about specific projects, but it is about the overall health of our community. And that comes back to operational support. I know it's like, what, beating a dead horse, so to speak. It's like, I know we all need money, but it is about money, but it's also about how can we leverage resources, how can we leverage conversations and relationships. You just talked about an entire person finding their whole entire career just in one meetup and conversation. And being able to now expand into a different market, even if they don't pursue it like forever, it's something that they now can start. They just like, I know I need to be in theater, I just don't know how to get there. And just that conversation, just being like, hey, you want to come hang out and come see a show, and like, I can get you behind the scenes and you can talk to such and such. And that's what I love about Philly in general, right? It's about who you know. And how you're going to get there. And so I like that spirit to continue on the funding level too.
It's also the value of meeting in person too. Like those, we kind of miss those meetups where you tell somebody what you do or what organization you're affiliated with, and they start thinking about how they can work with that organization. It's an immediate thought. It's like, you work where? I was thinking about, I might have to connect with you. There might be some things we can do together. I think we're automatically thinking about, like, what can we do together? Because it's not always, how do I, and the thing about competition, it's not about how do I do it better than you? If you're already doing it, how do I partner with you? And so we can continue to focus on what it is that we do well, and we can bring you in, because this is something that we want to, bring into our overall offering as well. So let's find a way that we can do that, because in that sense, you're now introduced to our community, and we're introduced to your community, and we're growing together because of that. So I do see a lot of that. And I think that is great, especially in all the emails that I'm back and forth on. It is all about, it's not like, hey, can I use you for things? It's like, no, I'm seeing a great opportunity for us to, work together to help each other out and do things. Yeah. So I love that
I mean,
so
that
much.
ties in. Funny story for our listeners. That ties into how this podcast series even began. Darnell, me, you, and Roberta hopped on a quick conversation just to like talk and get to know and understand Broad Street Review's like vision for the podcast. And we were laughing and talking about our multiple jobs, our multiple roles. And in 5 minutes before the meeting is supposed to end, I'm like, well, what if we just did this? And it was
Hmm.
like, yeah, that's the thing. That's what we're gonna do. And usually, and the beauty of it is that exists in the creative sector in a way it doesn't exist anywhere else. That you could just sit
Hmm.
down, be laughing, be joking, be human, and go, what about you? Tell me if this makes sense. Does that make sense? Can we do this thing? And then it's like, yeah, let's do this thing. Let's see. Let's really put ourselves in community to do it. And how beautiful it evolves.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say there was a lot of this process that helped me to kind of get out of my head about certain things, because I was like, wait a minute, now we're working with another organization on this thing that we've been doing so comfortably in our space, but now it's bigger. It's about more people. So it was like thinking about that made me think more broadly about, oh, there's other things I can do in terms of how I present this on my website, how we promote this out in the world, and how we can make sure that things like this are things that others can see and and see that there's a possibility to do with us as well. Because we are with our podcast, we are arguably just kind of promoting what the collection of. I mean, we're sort of interdisciplinary in our coverage anyway, so we're sort of picking at those things that we're having conversations about in article form, and then we're having long form conversations about them. So sometimes, there is an article and a review and a podcast for the same event, and they're all very different because of where we were able to go with them. And it's something when you're thinking about like how to reach people, how to go from your brick and mortar to your website to your social channels, and to get to all of these people. It seems like a daunting task, but once you simplify that process by realizing I don't have to do all of this on my own. I can actually reach out into the community and find those people who do this well, and learn from them and partner with them, collaborate. And then maybe they will give me the tools to figure out how I can do this for someone else who was in this spot with me before I met them, and connect and grow and collaborate and keep doing that. Yeah, it truly, for arts and culture, it does take a village. We have a very vibrant village, and yes, the funding is there, but I loved what Roberta said when we were talking about operational funding, but in general, it's resources. It's knowing that. Did you know that this organization offers this to nonprofits, and so as long as you're in that classification, like you can take advantage of the same things that this for-profit company is using, to further their goals and whatnot. And those are the kind of things like when we don't have a so you want to be a nonprofit kind of structure. I always thought that our cultural organization should really be that, So you want to be the next great arts organization, and that's why you're partnered with us, because we're going to help you by showing you success stories, by giving you those tools and resources, by advocating for you, and making sure that this is a space that you can grow in. And it helps to be reminded. I always say we don't just walk past a nonprofit and assume that they need our financial support. We have to keep asking. We have to keep letting them know that, your financial support is needed. Like, guess what we could do if you supported our initiative right now? This thing that we've got working on, we're very excited about this, and here's how you can take part. And it might even be something that you didn't actually see your way into until you heard that kind of pitch, the pitch about how you could be a part of it. So that's also great as well.
Well, and I think that's what we love about the work that we do at the Cultural Alliance, is to be able to make those connections and those partnerships and advocate for funding, but also provide direct services and solutions to our members, but not just our members, but just the creative industry at large, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I do love the fact that you're talking about kind of nonprofits and being the model of nonprofits, but we also know that our creative industry is so much broader than that for-profit, nonprofit binary system. And as we continue to evolve, we also even want to recognize some of the amazing creative entrepreneurs that are in our atmosphere in Philadelphia that are also driving kind of future innovations and what does art look like for the next century. And how Philadelphia is the central part of that hub. I mean, we make history literally here. So, how, and I do, maybe I'm being cocky, but I do feel that like Philadelphia can be the lead way of that creativity.
Yes.
So,
and that's why we can all look up and say that we've been here for over 20. When you say you've been here for over 20 years, they're like, what?
Yeah,
20 years? Like, it's just
we've been around. The Cultural Alliance has been around since 1972, so 50 years for us. And that was on the cusp of the bicentennial. And now we're about to go into 2026, celebrating, 250 years of America.
Yes.
In the birthplace of Philadelphia, right? Where it all kind of started and began, and where life continues to push forward. So I'm even excited about how arts and culture is going to show up for, our 2026, our 250th anniversary. So,
and how we're positioning.
Yeah.
And how we're positioning, like we're seeing some moves. There were announcements that the African American Museum of Philadelphia would be moving to a more prominent location. Yes, it's very exciting to say, okay, we're really investing in this organization and making sure that it cannot be missed by placing it in a space that'll be more accessible and supported by other great organizations as well. So looking forward to that.
It's a very full circle moment for me, because I used to work in that family court building in my other life. And so I'm like, wow. And culture is coming into this building. I love that building. No shade to the new family court building, but I love that building. So I'm really excited that it's going to get a new life, and I'm just excited. Like, that whole museum district, like that Parkway Museum District, is just going to be fire. I'm just excited. It's like, as the young kids say, it's going to be fire. No.
Philadelphia is fire, not on fire.
Yes.
Philadelphia is fire. Yes.
See, this is what happens when you get on this call. Just
That's
cutting.
when that coffee starts kicking in. You're like, wait a minute. You know what? What time is it? I should probably get back to work.
Um,
Well, is there anything about the Restart Initiative you'd like to add as we wrap up here? I'm sure we're going to have future conversations as well, but for this closeout, is there anything else you want to add?
I think for us is, I mean, you've expressed everything that me and Kabria, I think, have felt throughout this entire project. And we've learned so much from these organizations as well as from this entire process. Um, and, even, to the point where it's impacting how we internally function and work as an organization that serves other organizations or creative entities. Um, and one of the things that we've been thinking about is how do we offer kind of these programs that are funded, but allow us to provide additional support that can build upon these organizations so they can continue to grow and be successful. And our hope is that the Restart Initiative was successful for these organizations and allowed them to not only get visibility, but the larger thing that we really hope to accomplish was to give them a different approach on how they do their work and how it can be more capacity sustaining. And so that is our hope. And I do think that it has materialized. But again, we'll continue to build upon those relationships and of course, as a art serving organization, continue to build programs and resources internally so that way these organizations continue to feel supported. Kabria, did you have any final thoughts about the Restart program?
I think so, everything that Roberta said, but I think something that has stuck with me working with our Restart organizations is how can I help more? How can I give more? You know, how can I fill in the holes, right? Because the art side of it, the things that they're doing are amazing. So, how can we remove more barriers? How can we make things more accessible? How can we offer more, connections? They each individually left an impression. So I think that that's the big. I hope that we left the same impression on them, but they indeed left an impression on us as an organization and as just arts administrators. So that would be the biggest thing that I would want to say about the wrap of Restart.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank all the organizations in the Restart Initiative who took the time to chat because I did not give them questions in advance. It was very much off the cuff, those conversations, and they were so engaging, and there were so many endearing moments. And I remember at the end of most of them, I was like, "That was great. You were wonderful. Thank you so much." Like there was so much I learned here. I was taking tons of notes as we were going at the same time, and I'm so glad. Like I was so grateful to just have the time I had with all of the organizations, and I love the fact that we sort of packaged it as a series so you can go back and listen to it and continue to follow them and figure out where they are. And we asked about ways to support them. Towards the end, it was like if you have something specific that's coming up that we can keep our eyes open for and things like that. And yeah, it was just a great experience, and it has been something I've actually wanted to do. I just thought it was a little daunting to think about, like, I should go through, the membership of the Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance and just, start chatting with everyone. And so because my background came from theater, it was much easier to stay in that space, but to branch out and really discover how much we are alike. And it's not just because our programming is related to a stage. Our programming still gets out into the community and provokes conversation and makes people feel, and it just allows our city to just shine even brighter. So, Kabria Rogers, Roberta Johnson, I want to thank you so much. First of all, for our initial chat and for spearheading this initiative with us. Restart with BSR has been so fun to do as a summer project, and I look forward to many more of these because I think it's a great way to use the summer project too. It's kind of like it's an audio book. If
Yes.
you can piece by piece, or you can go back and listen to the whole thing as a package. Such a great thing. But I thank you so much for. I'm so glad we made this connection, and it was great to see you in person at the rally when we were all there, and then to see some of the artists there as well. Just showing up for our communities. Really valuable.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much. Special shout out to Broad Street Review, definitely for always being an amazing partner with us at the Cultural Alliance. And this, of course, is the first of many conversations. I'm so excited to continue to work and to elevate just like our creative industry and the work that's being done. So I'm super stoked to continue.
Great. All right. Well, I'm going to take off one artistic hat and put on another artistic hat for the rest of the day. But I want to thank you all both for taking the time to chat with me this morning, and thank all the listeners for sticking with us for this summer series as you were trying to make the most of your summer, but also including us in it a bit. Really appreciative, and don't forget about these organizations as we go through our seasons, and in the future, let them be a part of your lives, just as they are a part of ours. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thanks for listening to Restart with BSR, presented by the Greater Philadelphia Cultural Alliance and the Broad Street Review podcast. Want to get involved with Broad Street Review? Head on over to our website at www.broadstreetreview.com to read, subscribe to our weekly newsletters, learn about writing for BSR, or become a supporter. Our readers' donations keep us running. Join the BSR conversation on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at BroadST Review. Thanks for being part of our community.